Welcome to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. My name is Kristen.
And my name is Katie. And we want to spend a few minutes a day with you walking through the New Testament, one chapter at a time. This year, we will fix our gaze upon Christ so that we may know him, not only with our minds, but with our hearts.
Together, we will learn that who Jesus is changes everything.
Hey friends, welcome back to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. My name is Katie, and it is my pleasure to walk with you through 2 Thessalonians in our year-long study through the New Testament. Today, we finish up 2 Thessalonians by studying chapter 3. As always, you can follow along with the Behold studies in the Daily Grace Co. shop or with the reading plan linked in the show notes. So far in 2 Thessalonians, Paul has encouraged this body of new believers by pointing them beyond the persecution they are experiencing to the hope that they have in Christ. As Paul encourages them, he combats false teaching spreading amongst the church, false teaching that the day of the Lord has already come. This, of course, is not true. To prove it, Paul provides a few examples of what must happen before Christ returns. The bottom line is that the Thessalonians have hope that is secure. Their salvation is secure in Jesus. One day, he will come back for them, and evil will be defeated. That's where we find ourselves today. Paul will wrap up his second letter to the Thessalonians, but not before asking for prayer and addressing one last issue. First, Paul has two prayer requests. He asked the Thessalonians to pray that the word of the Lord may speed ahead and be honored. Paul wants his ministry to be fruitful, for many to come to the Lord through their efforts. And secondly, Paul asks for deliverance from the wicked and evil men. The Thessalonians know all about wicked and evil men, for they have been pressed with persecution on every side. This is a mutual prayer request between Paul and this beloved church, which is why amidst this prayer request, Paul actually comforts the Thessalonians in verse 3 when he says, "But the Lord is faithful. He will establish you and guard you against the evil one." Paul's confidence here is not unfounded. It is established by Christ's own prayer over his disciples before his arrest and crucifixion. Jesus prays in John 17. He prays to God and says, "I have given them your word. The world hated them because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. I am not praying that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one." So too, Paul isn't praying for the persecution to end, but for God to deliver them through it. On the other side of suffering comes more of God, and that is what Paul desires. But also, let's just take a moment to think about how honored the Thessalonians must have felt for their father in the faith to request prayer from them. Paul has encouraged them, he has taught them the truths of salvation, and it must have been wonderful to do anything to minister to a friend and a mentor that they love so much. Paul sets the standard for us to follow, to ask for prayer from our brothers and sisters in Christ. Seasoned and unseasoned, we are called to bear one another's burdens. Even this apostle needed to be bolstered by the prayers of the saints. We all need to be. I will never forget when I was walking through cancer, my sweet grandma called every church in her rural county to put me on the prayer bulletin. I needed help. And there is no sweeter, no more humbling truth than to know that the prayers of the saints are being lifted to the Father's ear for me. Sometimes we are reminded of God's love for us through the love of others. And Paul's request to the Thessalonians and his continuous prayer for them reminds us of that. Next, Paul addresses a problem within the church. Some brothers and sisters were walking in idleness. They were being lazy, likely mooching off the church's resources without doing any work themselves. We're not quite sure why they're being idle, but Paul clearly does not commend this attitude and has modeled the opposite for them. During Paul's time with the Thessalonians, he did not eat anyone else's bread without paying for it. He worked day and night so that he may be a good example of godly living. These idle members of the Thessalonian church were not only lazy, they were meddling in the lives of others. Paul calls them busybodies, not working with their hands, but working with their mouths. Paul's solution was for these people to work quietly and earn their own living. In modern terms, he would say, carry your own weight or get to work. Those in the Thessalonian church should not encourage their behavior, but instead they should distance themselves from idleness and warn their brothers and sisters of the disobedience of their actions. Paul wraps up this letter as he typically does, in his own handwriting. He shares a benediction that I will read to you here. He says, "Now may the Lord of peace himself give you peace at all times and in every way. The Lord be with you all." Interestingly, Paul closes his first letter to the Thessalonians by calling their attention to the God of peace. Amidst persecution, amidst questions about Christ's return, amidst laziness in the church, Paul prayed peace over the Thessalonians. The Thessalonians could look forward to peace in their future when they would spend moment after moment with Jesus in eternity. And they could have peace today. Jesus has secured their peace with God. No matter what they face, no matter the wicked people that come up against them, no antichrist nor spirit of evil can thwart their standing with God in Jesus. As we come up against evil today, we too can be assured of this truth. We behold Jesus as our peacemaker today. He is our triumph for tomorrow and our secure hope for today, for now and forevermore. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. Don't forget to check out the show notes for helpful links and resources related to today's episode. And make sure you are following at Daily Grace Podcast on Instagram for more A Year in the Bible content, and at the Daily Grace Co. for all things Bible study resources. We can't wait to study again with you tomorrow. Bye, friends.